We live. People, deluded. I'm back again. Good morning, and I hope you're all doing well and safe. I've got a special guest with me. He needs no introduction. He's a good mate of mine. Definitely one of the best content creators when it comes to Arsenal sort of stuff. Harry, how you doing, man? You good this morning?
Yeah, all good, man. Thank you for your kind words, man. And you're up there, mate, with the best content creators as well. That's why I was delighted to come on. Keep up the good work, man. It's really good stuff.
I appreciate that. And if you don't know anything about Harry, I can't imagine you don't. Make sure you check out his YouTube channel. He does a lot of great stuff. And I watched your latest video, and it gave me a lot of eye openers. So we're the kings of good content. So keep it up. let's jump straight into it. Please make sure you're hitting the like button. First question I want to get at you and ask you, because I like the way you look at football. 19 games played so far. Obviously, we're about to play tonight. What have you made of the 19 games up until this point? And the second part of that question, how do you feel going forward with it being the halfway point?
It's been hard to watch at times, hasn't it? It's been it feels a little bit like we kind of threatened to get started and then we've hit brick walls, and it's happened a few times now. You know, if you cast your mind back to the very beginning of the season, you know, a couple of victories, it looked good, and then we had a really difficult run of games in which you probably expected Arsenal to lose. And then we kind of thought that we were getting back on track, and then we went through that really bad run. And now in terms of the Premier League, it looks like we're kind of back on the right path again. So it's been very up and down. I think it's been a very difficult season for Mikel, not just because of the issues that have been going on behind the scenes, i.e. the players not being happy, certain issues, the Ozil thing, other various things as well, have made his job difficult. The fact that we're in a pandemic has made his job even more difficult than it should have been. It deprived him of a proper pre-season, as well as that whole kind of team bonding thing hasn't really been there. Exactly. So there's been so many issues. I think we can all agree that we'd prefer to be higher up the table, and we probably should be higher up the table. The thing I can't get past right now is some of those home defeats that we've suffered.
Oh, bro, take it away, please. This is why I have you on my show. The home performances, oh my God.
Yeah, the home performances have been a massive problem. And, you know, we lost to Burnley, we lost to Villa, we lost to Leicester. And if you win two of those, you know, particularly in a season like this, 6 points makes the world of difference. And then we're talking about a completely different season. So it's been fine lines, fine margins. I feel like when the season is done, we'll be in a much stronger position than we are now, just because things will balance out. You know, I genuinely believe that. But I can understand why there are a lot of Arsenal fans as well that are a little bit concerned and worried about sort of Mikel's tenure so far.
And from a tactical point of view, what have you made of our tactics? Because I do feel there are some positives, like, you know, we've gone on a couple of clean sheets and whatnot. I still think we're not playing to our full potential in an attacking sense. What have you made with these 19 games from a tactical point of view with Arsenal?
It's been really difficult, hasn't it, to kind of try and make sense of it all, because it feels like we've changed tactics a lot. And one of the things I used to criticize Unai Emery for was that lack of a plan and that constant chopping and changing of things. And I didn't like that. The reason I've got a little bit more sympathy for Mikel, though, is because he's tried things and they've not worked. And then he's kind of panicked into trying something else. And the difference this season to seasons prior is that actually you've now got a couple of days between each game. And if you've had no pre-season as well, to embed those ideas,
makes it even more difficult.
Yeah, you're having to change fundamentals of your side within 1 or 2 afternoons worth of training, and that is a problem. I think I'm glad he's scrapped the back five, the back three, whatever you want to call it. I'm glad he scrapped that, because offensively we just weren't
for nothing, man.
Yeah, exactly. And ultimately, as Arsenal fans, we want success, we want results, but also you have to enjoy watching your team, don't you? And you don't when we're playing like that. So, I think for me, tactically, it's been a little bit all over the place. It's been up and down a little bit. But I think he's probably set on a system now, and I hope he's set on a system. I think the recruitment in terms of going out and getting Martin Odegaard suggests that he's going to stick with the number 10 thing, something that he dismissed actually for large parts of his tenure. I think he's decided now that he needs that, and that signing probably tells you that he's going to persist with it. So it's been up and down, but we have to always remember that Mikel is learning.
I learned on the job,
That's it. And as a football club, whether you agree with that approach or not, if you do take that route and go and appoint someone who's a rookie, then you also have to be willing to give him the time as well.
Do you feel, speaking of Arteta, let me press you a bit. What's more of your feelings in relation to Arteta at this halfway point? Because for me, you know, I don't have any allegiance to him per se. I want him to do well. I'll back him. I don't really like the sort of Arteta out brigade that, you know, is met when we lose. But at the same time, I'd see some positives. I also see some concerning things. And I might be cherry picking, but I look at the game in the league the League Cup, against Manchester City. He started Runnison. Now, again, I can criticize the decision to start Runnison, but it's the language for me used after it in that Runnison is still adapting and whatnot. So I have to question why use him there. You know, you look at the last game against Southampton, of course we needed to make rotations and whatnot, but I did feel definitely in relation to Partey, he should have started. So do you feel he's shown a bit of naivety in the cup competitions and in the league, or like, what's your opinions on Arteta?
I think Mikel Arteta knows that the club are not going to pull the trigger on him this season. I think he's very confident in that. I think that at the start of the campaign, the remit would have been for Mikel Arteta to get Arsenal back in the Champions League. That was the primary objective.
Facts.
And when you're talking about the FA Cup and the Carabao Cup, yeah, it'd be nice to win the FA Cup again and defend it successfully. It would be nice to win the Carabao Cup. But ultimately, neither of those two competitions offer you a route back into the Champions League. So you can understand why, in terms of Arsenal's priorities, they would have been third and fourth. And you can understand why he's prioritising the league and probably the Europa League. The difference with the Europa League is that particularly in the early stages, you can often coast through with a reserve side because the level of opposition is not.
It's a golfing class, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. So I think I wouldn't say he's been naive in the cup competitions. I just think he's just made it very clear that they're not his priority. Going back to Saturday, because he got a lot of stick for that, the changes that he made. I just feel like the players that, the only two that he actually left at home were Emile Smith-Rowe and Kieran Tierney. And we've heard from the club this morning that Kieran Tierney's even a doubt for tonight's game.
Yeah.
So, that suggests that this discomfort they're saying he was feeling in his injury was there at the weekend as well. And Mikel didn't want to take the risk, and I don't blame him for that.
You can't.
You can't. Exactly. Emile Smith-Rowe, who wasn't involved, is a player who historically has struggled with injury problems. Thomas Partey's just come back after a long period out. So the players that he left out, I don't really... yes, I'd have liked to have seen a stronger side, but I get why he did it. And I get why that in his eyes, 3 points tonight is probably worth more than progressing in the FA Cup one more round. But now the pressure's on, isn't it, for him to deliver that 3 points tonight? Because if he doesn't, then that's that whole rhetoric of, he rotated and it didn't get the benefit out of it.
Didn't do nothing with it.
Yeah, exactly.
You're right on that. And that's what I mean why I wanted to ask you, because I agree. Like, from a fan's point of view, of course, you want to see the strongest team all the time and defend the cup. But we did need to make rotations. And I think we can both agree, and everybody in the comments can agree, we do need to rotate and things like that, because bodies are dropping. Like you mentioned, 3 players that are central to us are struggling. And that also brings me on to my next sort of thing. It's like Arsenal, we haven't really got, I'd say, an 11 that we can wholeheartedly say are going to go off and get top 4 for us and do other things. But depth is another reason. What have you made of the transfer business in January so far? First of all, outgoings. Ozil is gone. Socrates is gone. It's alleged that Mustafi is going to follow them out and whatnot. What have you made of that business?
It's interesting because I feel like the Ozil situation and
nothing there.
Can you hear me?
I think plug your mic out and plug it back in.
Hold on. One second. One second. Is that better?
Yeah, you're good, man. You're good. It was just some scratching noises going on when he's talking. What you say?
Yeah, no, I don't know what that was, man. Apologies.
No, you're good now. Anyways, I don't know what that was either. Yeah, you're good, man. You're good now.
Cool. The outgoings has been interesting. The Ozil situation was a situation that just really needed resolving one way or the other. I'm a fan of Ozil in terms of what he can bring to the team. I think he's a very good player. The fact that we've now gone back to the whole number 10, the whole idea of playing a number 10 just makes it sound even more crazy that he was completely left out of the picture.
Yeah.
But it wasn't going to work. So, he's been moved out the door. I'm fine with that. Socrates, I felt a little bit sorry for. because I never thought attitude-wise he ever let anybody down. And I felt it was a little bit harsh that he, who would have given everything every time he played for Arsenal, was left out. And then someone like Mustafi, who's rejected a new contract, is clearly just running it down, was included in the side.
I know commitment there.
Yeah, exactly. So I got a bit of sympathy for Socrates. I'm delighted for him that he's got his move back to Greece, because for his family and stuff, that would be ideal. And Olympiacos,
big club as well,
massive football club, huge. So that's big for him. And then in terms of Mustafi, it's interesting because yesterday we had reports that there were talks about the contract being terminated. And today, Chris Wheatley's reported that Shkodran Mustafi's father has said, we've got a contract until June and we're not looking to terminate it. So, is it because the agreement is just not there yet, that they haven't met a kind of solution that both parties are happy with? I don't know. We'll have to watch that one as it develops. But the main thing for this window for me was to root out the bad weeds so that we could start again in the summer without having to go through phase one, if you like, which is
same thing again and again and again.
Yeah.
So what would you make of incomings? Let's speak about Odegaard. He's obviously the flag bearer. We have brought in Matt Ryan as a number 2 temporarily. He is better than Runarsson. We can all see Runnarsson's probably not of the level. There is talk of a left back. So what have you made of the January business so far? And that could be done still potentially.
I think for the January business so far, I think Odegaard fits the bill quite well because he is we know he's got quality. You don't get signed by Real Madrid at 16 years old if you don't. So he's clearly got the quality. He's not got the game time right now, which means coming to Arsenal, he will have a point to prove and he'll be motivated. I think also the fact that he's not, you don't look at him and say, oh, he's a major player. That means Emile Smith-Rowe will never get a look in. And I think that's a good thing because that competition between the two is healthy. It means that we don't drop off in level so much when we play one or the other, but equally it doesn't block Emile Smith-Rowe's long-term development.
Right.
Odegaard's level and the fact that it is for the moment just a short-term loan deal, all of that combined, I think makes it a really good fit for Arsenal at the moment. In terms of Matty Ryan, experienced goalkeeper, available. And I spoke with Fabrizio Romano on one of my podcasts.
Go and check that out, people.
Cheers, man. And one of the things that he said when I kept sort of pressing him on Arsenal transfers, will they do this? Will they do that? The key word he kept using was opportunity. If the right opportunity comes along, Arsenal will take it. And Matt Ryan was an opportunity. We got him in on loan. He becomes a free agent as well at the end of the season, interestingly. So if it works out, if it works out, then you can take him on a free transfer. And you've got yourself a backup goalkeeper. So there's I think the business has been okay so far. There's talk of a left back maybe coming in as well. But again, I think if the opportunity is right, Arsenal would do it. But I don't see them stretching themselves in this current window.
That's the thing. We can't see ourselves extending it. And I personally, I don't know what to make of our transfer market business, because on one hand, I think it shows new progress. It shows that we're serious with certain players we've brought in and certain players that have gone. But on the other hand, do I find myself, and this is mainly why I got you here to kind of reason with you, should I praise Arsenal for actually doing things like that? Because surely if you want to get top 4 and things like that, you bring in players who can help you with that. You move on players who shouldn't. And many people will say we're only righting the wrongs of last year, because when we brought in Partey, we probably should have brought in someone of Odegaard's ilk or an 8 that's able to be creative. So did the club necessarily deserve praise for doing what business as usual should be done? Or am I being a bit harsh in that regards? I'm not actually sure.
I think we've got to take into account a lot of factors right now. We've got to take in, I keep talking about the pandemic, but it has had a massive impact on football.
Yeah, there's no getting around that.
Yeah, whether it's on the training ground, whether it's the fact that we've got a fixture pile up now, financially it's had an impact. In so many ways, it's caused clubs problems.
Facts.
I think Arsenal now, more than ever, need to be creative in the transfer market. And it's not always about going and spending 25, 30 million pounds on a player and that being your solution. Sometimes you can find solutions to problems without really spending a great deal of money. When you're talking about somebody like Matt Ryan, it is very much with the view of him being a number 2. I've seen people on Twitter going, Arsenal have gone and signed a Brighton goalkeeper on loan. And, that's the level we're at. Well, no, it's not, because is Matt Ryan better than Alex Runarsson? Yes, he is.
Yes, and by quite a bit, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so you are upgrading on that position. It's not the glamorous upgrade that you as fans want, but the reality is it is an upgrade. You've also got to take into account Arsenal have been operating on a UEFA Champions League wage structure whilst receiving a Europa League income for years now. And the longer this goes on, the worse our financial situation becomes. And so we're at a place now where we have to do deals like this. We're not the only club struggling financially right now. It's happening all over the world. And I think they deserve some praise, I think, mainly for getting out the deadwood in this window. Because not only is the whole uncertainty about their futures on the training ground every day having a
unhealthy,
bit of
man.
Yeah, it's unhealthy. We know that the Ozil situation turned toxic for whatever reason. That became untenable. So get that out of the door. We probably think that the leaks that were coming out of the club regarding certain issues were probably from there, or if not from his representatives, then maybe one of the others who was near the
little circle.
Yeah, exactly. And you've kind of weeded out what I would say a little bit of a clique. Yeah, Mustafi, Ozil, Kolasinac.
I even forgot Kolasinac left on loan in this market as well. Yeah, another sort of part of the gang.
Yeah, exactly. So it feels like Arsenal, he talked about changing the culture. He is doing that, and I'm willing to give him patience right now. But of course, there comes a point when you're managing a club as big as Arsenal where that needs to turn into success. And so this is his first full season. I'm willing to give him this season. But I'll tell you one thing, at the start of next season, I'll be judging Mikel Arteta as I was judging Unai Emery before him, and as I was judging Arsene Wenger before that. The reason that I gave Mikel Arteta a little bit more leeway than Emery at the start was because I think he inherited a worse team. I think he lost, Unai Emery, when he came in, he had experienced campaigners like Petr Cech. He had Aaron Ramsey there as well.
He brought in Lichtsteiner, who might not be a good player, but the whole Juventus sort of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. He brought Socrates in. He brought, he was very experienced, whatever you say about him. He brought Lucas Torreira in, who at the time was one of the, the hottest properties.
Commodities.
Yeah, exactly. And he had a fire in Aubameyang. He had Lacazette. He had, he had Ozil. He chose to do what he did with that fire.
Yeah.
But, he had a much stronger squad than Mikel Arteta took.
And you see your point there about Arteta and things like that and our financial structure. For me, that's why I look at the FA Cup as kind of imperative. Like, I agree with what you said. I'm sure fans will take top four over the FA Cup, but at the same time, if I'm being a bit cynical, was the club happy about the winning the FA Cup last year for its merit in itself, or was it, the ticket into Europa? And like you greatly said, we're operating on with a Europa League budget with Champions League wages. It's a situation that can't stay the same. So one has to wonder, how much planning can we do in the summer without knowing if we're going to get Europe? Like, I hope we get it via the Europa League or the top four, but it did make me wonder. You made a great point about judging Arteta on previous principles, and I feel Arsenal fans, or in general, since post Arsene Wenger, we've kind of struggled with applying balance to our managers. I'm sure you remember we were both killed on AFTV for daring to ask Unai Emery anything. Arteta's been the hero, the villain, the hero, the villain. I just feel there's a bit of balance. What do you make of Edu's position? Because, we've focused a lot on Arteta, sorry. We know he's now a manager, not a head coach. And, Edu, fundamentally, he's got rid of a lot of people, taking on more responsibility. Transfers are his. On one hand, I praise him, as we said, for getting rid of players and looking to bring people in. But I'd also say that that's just what we should be doing anyways. And when I look at the signings of Runarsson, somebody has to address who brought that guy in. So what do you make of Edu's time at Arsenal? Was you convinced on him and he's changed your opinion, or did it go the other way? What's your thoughts on him as a director or whatever he is?
I think, again, it's another one that you have to give a little bit of time, because Edu's come into the job and ultimately his hands are tied by the players that we already have at the club. So, I don't like the signing of Willian. At the time,
we're going to talk about him. Yeah. We're not getting away with that.
I mean, at the time, I thought it weren't the worst decision in the world, but now it's proving to be a bad one. But he's going to get things wrong. Find me a football club that haven't bought flops in before. There are flops everywhere, and every transfer carries an element of risk. Unless you go and sign Lionel Messi or Cristiano Ronaldo, Every transfer has an element of risk to it. Will the player settle in? Will he fit the system? Will it work? Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. So I'm not going to kill him because of that. But overall, again, his main remit would have been during this window would have been to get the players out the door that Arsenal need to. And you can't really criticise Arsenal for sort of what they're doing right now, which is having to probably pay out not all of the contract. There would have been some kind of agreement reached in between that suits all parties. But what they've done is they've played on the fact that it's easier for those players to find new clubs if they're free agents. So they've sold that to the players, and then they've contributed financially to the termination of the contract. And so Arsenal are proactively looking to lighten that squad to create space to bring in others. This is the first stage of it. You know, people talk about Mikel Arteta having the summer window. It was a mess the summer.
It's a mess, to put it nicely. Terrible.
Yeah, exactly. The summer was a mess in so many ways. So that, forget that now. This is the time now where you're going to start to see things change, and things are changing, even if it is just with outgoings right now. But that has to happen first. That always had to happen first. You can't moan about deadwood and then, say how... Yeah, you can't say how bad those players are and then be surprised that you couldn't sell them for money in the summer. Like that, it's just being hypocritical. So let's see how it goes. He's moving players out. He's brought in a couple of kind of stop gaps in Odegaard and Matt Ryan so far in this window. Again, though, can I say with any degree of confidence that in the summer we're going to go and spend big? No, I can't, because as you know, with our finances, what we do this season, i.e. do we get into Europe, do we get into the Champions League, that is going to have a massive impact on what we can do in the summer.
Facts and more facts. And it's like you said, in that regards, and again, what do you make of the whole talk of, Arsenal getting into bed with agents? Because I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing. Like, of course, I don't want an agent able to influence decisions. And I haven't really been fond of someone like Kaya Jarutkin's comments. They seem a bit too close to home. But I don't mind it. You look at how Wolves have been able to work it. I think our problem is, you can have a great relationship with agents, but if you haven't got money to get their top clients, then you can only expect a player like Willian, etc. What have you made of the whole getting into bed with agents and just signing friends and all of that sort of talk?
I think too much has been made of it, if I'm honest. I think we went from one extreme to the other. We had Arsene Wenger, who didn't want to deal with any agents. And if you think about how many good players we missed out on over the years because of the club's reluctance to do those kind of deals, then, we were kicking ourselves. But then we've gone the opposite extreme, it seems, where we're now signing up everybody that's got anything to do with Kia Jarabshan. So there has to be a balance.
Paper trails and whatnot,
There has to be a balance somewhere along the line. And I'm not against it if it works. And I'm not completely... I'm in the middle. If we can make it work for our advantage, great. If we can't, then we stay away from it. The issue you've got here as well is you've got, for all the good things that Edu has done or is starting to do, he is quite inexperienced as well in comparison to other sort of people in his sort of role at the big clubs. So he'll learn as well. You've also got to think that something was obviously going on that was untoward behind the scenes with Raul Sanllehi, which has set us back, because at the end of the day, the club have shoved him out the door because the Cronkies have sent someone in to go through everything with a fine tooth comb, and they found some issues, and that's why Raul was pushed out the door. So we've been set back, maybe a couple of years by all that shit as well, because we as much as I still want to give Nicolas Pepe a chance, I still think that there is talent there. We're just not really seeing it right now. There is no way on God's earth that we should have paid £72 million for him.
Absolutely robbed. Absolutely, a £40 million player at best, and that's not me getting at him. That's a fact.
Yeah, and then you look at William Saliba, who is currently out on loan because Mikel Arteta didn't feel he was ready yet. If he's not ready, then why have we spent £30 million plus on him? So, there's been a lot of bad transfers over the years that these guys now who are in these roles are going to have to rectify and have to put right. The fact that Raul was pushed out the door suggests that there was something untoward. The club have found that and they've moved him on. So we've got to be understanding of that as well. We've got to be understanding of we've probably been set back financially because of these things. Yeah.
And it's like you said, it's for me, it's like people always focus on, and we will get onto Pepe. Pepe is a failure right now, but it's all fun and games looking at the Pepes, the Xhakas, the Mustafis, the Lacazettes. They are mismanaged, but for me, it's also the loan signings and also like the free transfers, the costs with, you know, giving players contracts and getting rid of them. It's just mismanagement. And when I look at the scale, I see Kroenke, who isn't hands-on, to put him nicely. You see a novice in Edu and Arteta. I'm sure there's stuff they don't know, what they don't know. So I have got confidence for this structure, but one does wonder where I do think experience is overrated, but it could never be overstated. And I do think we do need someone above the scenes who can kind of do that sort of thing. Let's speak about Willian and Pepe, because it's almost like you've got two great elephants in the room. You've got one man who I'm sure we all admitted at best he was going to be frustrating. We didn't think Willian was going to be this bad. And then you've got Pepe, where clearly he's a good footballer. He gives you some patches of brilliance, but the football IQ just isn't there to kind of progress at Arsenal or be a first name on the team sheet. And I feel it's pretty damning that as good as Bukayo Saka is, a 19-year-old that kind of was nowhere near the first team 18 months ago, really, is playing like the 32-year-old in Willian's case and the 72 million pound player in Pepe's case. So what's your feelings on both of those players, and how do we rectify that situation?
Starting with Willian, when we were linked with him, my initial thought, and I'm not going to flip-flop now, I'm not going to sit there and just throw abuse at him. Like my initial thought was, this guy has proven he can do it at this level. If the terms are right, then I would bring him in, because if you look beyond Aubameyang and Lacazette, if you look at Arsenal's forward line, what did we have? We had a young Gabriel Martinelli working his way back to fitness. We had Reece Nelson. We had Nicolas Pepe, who's not really performing. We had Bukayo Saka, who for all his brilliance is still a kid.
He's still a young man, yeah.
And I felt that somebody like Willian, who's been there, done it, also has the quality, could come in and could give something to this forward line. But as a backup, I wanted him to come in as a squad player.
Facts.
You know, and if he was there and he was playing in the cups and he was coming on with 20 minutes to go when you maybe things weren't going your way, add to that, he's got a good set piece delivery. Well, he did have before he came to Arsenal. You know, I felt it was something a little bit different. Also, the fact that he can play in that, could play in that number 10 position as well.
That's what we're all on about, man. Sorry to cut you off quickly, but that 10 position with Willian is what appealed to me the most. In that, Willian, I'm pretty sure I speak for everyone when we thought Willian is going to be frustrating. He's not going to set the world on fire with his ability, but we thought we'd have a good squad option, an experienced player, someone that would contribute a bit more in terms of goals and assists, to putting it nicely. And for me, the 10 position, because we knew we weren't getting rid of Ozil at the time. We knew we weren't getting the Yawas and these sort of modern day 10s or 8.5s. I've kind of been disappointed with Willian, but go on, my guy.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I thought that flexibility was something that appealed as well. And I kind of in my head had him a bit like, do you remember Julio Baptista, who came to Arsenal, right? And he would do expectations. He would do a job for you in the cup games, and he'd come on an impact game sometimes, but you knew he was never going to start every week. That's how I saw Willian, but that hasn't worked out. It is what it is with that one. I still think that at some point in the season, Willian will contribute. It's just not.
I'm hoping so. We need it to, because it's some madness right now. I can't lie.
Fingers crossed that you know, at some point he proves his worth. With Nicolas Pepe, I watch him and I see, like you said, flashes. I see moments where I think he can impact the game here. And if you think back to the game on Saturday, obviously the most recent example, he played that clever free kick over to Gabriel Martinelli, which was a chance. And I think there was one more as well where he did really well to create a chance, but the chance was spurned. And if those chances are taken, we're coming away from that game saying that Pepe got 2 assists. So they're very fine margins with Pepe right now. And because the margins are so fine, I still feel like we shouldn't give up hope on him yet. I still feel like we could get something out.
Arteta has, though. Or will?
I think Arteta probably has. I think a couple of things that have happened behind the scenes haven't necessarily helped Pepe's case. I think to go into the French press and tell them that you're frustrated that you're not playing and you don't understand why you're not playing, and then get your chance the next week against Leeds and go and get yourself sent off by being an idiot, that didn't help him.
What a guy!
You know, that would have set him back in Arteta's books. And I know people don't like going back to Arsene Wenger, but I can't help but feel a more father figure type manager like Arsene Wenger would have got more out of Pepe.
He needs a dad right now.
Yeah, he needs a dad. He needs someone who recognizes that he's someone that needs to be loved, and would have gone and put his arm around him to try and channel that out of him. Now that, maybe Wenger was too faithful to some players, gave him too much love. I agree with that.
100.
But that experience, we talk about experience. If you've managed for 35, 40 years, you will recognize those players quicker than someone like Mikel Arteta would. And that's no disrespect to him. He just hasn't been
He's
there.
just not been fresh into the game.
Yeah, exactly. So I still have not given up faith on Nicolas Pepe. But having said all of that, if someone wants to come and table a 25, 30 million pound bid, I'd let him go.
Bro, you said it there. Like, all of my thoughts, exactly how I feel about Pepe. It feels, on one hand, if I'm Arteta, I'm looking at it as I've got a lot to focus on at this club. I don't really have time to focus on Pepe. It's not like he's 19 or whatever like Saka. This man is 25, turning 26. His own dad said when he joined the club that he needs to take his game up. And when I look at Pepe, I do think he cares. I do think there's a bit of desire. I do think he's improved a bit defensively, but we're just seeing one step forward, two steps back sort of thing. So when I look at it, he's not his player. When it's not your player, you don't really have any sort of reason for him to want to use him. You can just say, listen, this is a mistake on the other people's parts. But I do think there's a player in there. Clearly, he's played his way into plans under Arteta at some point with the FA Cup. We can't really exactly sell him. Like you said, if someone comes 2030, I think at this point, we might be better off trying to get a loan with an option to buy. I think I would rather us pursue with Pepe than Willian due to the age and the outlay we paid. It's just, I can't see how it gets any better. And in Willian's case, at least with Pepe can't complain that he's out of the team. Like Ryan has said, Pepe very much is a confidence player, and so is Willian. But Willian, at least, for as poor as Pepe's been, he's not really been given that sort of run of games. I don't think he's playing to the standard where he should get that. But Willian's played consistently. Willian has, and I'm not trying to lead a sort of scapegoating of Willian. I just don't get why he's playing, because I hear talk of non-negotiables. I see other young players that may or may not do better with the chances. I don't know what it is. And obviously you've got what I call the Arsenal conspiracy theorists talking about why Willian plays. Maybe it's because he's friends with Arteta. They've got the same agent. There's stuff in his contract. Why is it, do you feel, that Willian consistently has been playing prior to obviously this sort of recent run that he's been out of the side?
You make a great point that he has played too much. And if you're Nicolas Pepe, you're looking on and you're thinking, well, this guy ain't doing it, so why is he getting picked ahead of me? I get that. Right. And I've got a lot of sympathy for Pepe in that sense. And that's why I can't sit with my hand on my heart and say that I feel like Mikel Arteta has done everything to get the best out of Pepe, and it's not just happened. With the Willian thing, maybe Mikel Arteta places a little bit too much emphasis in what happens in training every day.
Yeah.
And that is something that we don't see as fans, so we can't understand. But there is a concern from me that maybe that's what it is. Maybe Willian is an exemplary professional, turns up on time.
He mentioned that. So you're right.
Yeah. Gives his all in training. But the problem here is that sometimes as a manager, you have to be able to differentiate between those who 100% follow your, as you said, non-negotiables to a T, and those who are actually going to turn up on a match day for you
and actually give you performances. Yeah,
exactly. And if you think back to somebody like Sir Alex Ferguson, right, who I hate to use as an example because I despised the bloke through my whole growing up, but you think about somebody like Roy Keane, right? Roy Keane and him used to give each other hell. Yeah, Roy Keane's spoken about it since. Alex Ferguson's spoken about it since. Those two did not see eye to eye. Roy Keane didn't adhere to all of Alex Ferguson's rules, values, whatever you want to call them. But ultimately, Sir Alex Ferguson knew that on a match day, he could rely on Roy Keane. And so sometimes you have to park your ego as a manager and you have to just do what you think is going to get the team the results. And I don't think Mikel Arteta has learned that yet. I think Mikel Arteta is very much, if you're on board with me, I'm on board with you.
Yeah, no sort of balance and middle ground sort of thing. Yeah,
exactly. And it's a bit like the Aubameyang situation. Aubameyang, we can all agree, probably Arsenal's only world-class player right now. He's gone through a difficult patch, but having done everything he did to persuade him that he needed to stay, to get him to sign on the dotted line, to make him the focal point of the team, he just wouldn't drop him because Aubameyang, by signing, in Arteta's eyes, showed him that he's fully on board with him. But that doesn't mean that they're indestructible. That doesn't mean that because that loyalty is there, that right now, at that point in time, they are bringing you what they need to bring to the table on a match day. And I think that's something that he will learn. That is something he will learn. It's something he will pick up over time. There's the whole big argument around whether a club like Arsenal can afford to give him that time to learn it. That's the issue here, isn't it? But I do think that's maybe the case. Maybe there's too much emphasis placed on attitude, or what is perceived to be attitude, and what is happening on the training ground. Because if you think of someone like Mesut Ozil, I don't think he ever not cared when he was on the pitch, but his body language gives that vibe.
Yeah.
Nicolas Pepe, I think at times gives that vibe as well, where he looks like, I'm not bothered, I've given up, I'm fed up. But actually, probably inside, he's very determined to succeed. You don't get to that level in football if you don't have that determination. So, it could be that as well.
Great point about Pepe, because I feel when I look at Pepe, I've seen a bit of a reaction. I saw Arteta get at him for not being good defensively. I see him trying that much harder. I do see a bit of an attitude, but one thing that I saw him change when he's played against Newcastle is my thing with Pepe. I wanted him to be a bit more like Thierry Henry, in the sense of, obviously he cannot be that, but when you look at Henry, forget the ability. If a game's not going his way or whatever, he's very demanding on his teammates for that football. It doesn't always appear that Pepe is that, and now when you're not doing that, and we've got a team that doesn't necessarily play to Aubameyang's strengths, hasn't probably played to Lacazette's strengths historically, and definitely not Pepe's. It's a conundrum. I do think Pepe's not been helped when you look at the fullbacks, and as you know, partnerships are a massive thing. Him and Bellerin are not good enough together. Bellerin's better with Saka, Pepe's better with Maitland-Niles. On the left-hand side against Southampton, it's no coincidence that Martinelli didn't look like the Martinelli, because he's got Cedric, who's been doing all right at right back. So people underrate partnerships. I just feel with Pepe, I do feel Arteta could do a lot more, but I just feel it's down to him. I just want to see him kind of, the penny sort of drop that, okay, I'm 25, I'm at Arsenal, I might, enjoy being at Arsenal, the historic French ties, I'm in London, but it's going against me sort of thing. The craziest thing is, just in terms of contract length, he could probably outlast Arteta. So I don't know if that's in the back of his mind if something goes wrong. With Willian, every time and again, I'm not saying it to keep Willian over Pepe or Pepe over Willian. It's just historically, you look at Willian, the numbers are going against us. 32-odd, 3-year deal. Every poor game, it highlights that a bit more. And I don't know. Maybe it's a thing where when I look at the senior players, you look at how Mustafi allegedly is a big vocal guy, and it seems to us that Arteta kind of begged him to stay. You hear that David Luiz at times hasn't been necessarily the best of players off the field, but he's still playing him. And when I look at it and I think about clicks, is he somewhat, saying to the experienced players, I want to keep you lot on side because you lot potentially have more power and you could do what potentially led to Lampard's demise at Chelsea? Because I would have liked him to put his hat on these young players more so than anything, because they're more likely to have a degree of allegiance. Is it any coincidence that Smith Rowe has come into the fray and he's played very well? Even though I want people to play for the shirt, I want people to play for the fans and all of these things, but I look at it on a cynical point of view. You should want to play for yourself. These young players are looking at it like, okay, they might be playing for every other reason, like I said, but they're looking at it in a thing where I want to play Premier League football. This is now an opportunity. What have you made of Smith Rowe? And again, kind of circling back on what you said earlier, how do you think Smith Rowe and Odegaard can play together, if anything? Because I know it's probably either or, but I just have this thing about Arsenal, is that it's like in defense, we looked at Gabriel to come to fix all our defensive issues. We're looking at Odegaard and Smith Rowe now to just fix all our creative issues. And as you know, it's 10 times harder than that, and it's not as simple as that.
Yeah, I think for me, it's probably either or, just because of the whole. I think that if you play both of them in the midfield, you weaken us defensively. And, and for all the crap that we've given Mikel Arteta, I actually think that's something he's done quite well. And even now we've switched to a back four. We've not been shipping goals anywhere near as regularly as we have done in previous seasons. So I think he deserves some praise for that. And I don't think he'll be willing to mess around with the balance. So I think it is very much either or. But having said that, that depends on the game state. You could be at home, it could be 0-0. You could be looking to break someone down last 20 minutes. The other team are not offering a great deal going forward. Then you could do it. You could throw the second one on. You could ask one of them to start from a slightly wider position, because both of them have that in their locker. So I think playing them on the flanks is an option in terms of shoehorning them in. my worry about doing that is with two players that naturally want to come in field is that you become very narrow and very predictable.
Yeah. And our fullbacks aren't expansive, at least on the right hand side.
Yeah, and I thought that was a major problem against Crystal Palace when we played them and we got held to a 0-0 draw.
Yeah.
It's like you're watching it and, you know, you're Roy Hodgson, you're travelling to Arsenal. All you've got in your mind is if I play two narrow banks of four, they're not breaking me down for shit because they're not going to use that width. And sometimes you
need to... taller than them, so you can deal with the aerial threat.
Exactly. It's no good creating spaces in the wide areas and just lumping balls in the box unless you have the right type of forwards, which we don't. So there's got to be a little bit more guile. There's got to be a little bit more creativity. You've got to take people on. But often the only way you're going to create those spaces is if you do pull that back four wider apart, you increase the spaces between each of the defenders.
Fact.
That's the spaces you can harm. You can use to harm them, and exploit. That's how it's got to work. So I want to see a little bit more variety in our attacking play. I hope Martin Odegaard will bring that to the table. But they're both very talented. They're both players that I think will add something to the team. And at the same time, I don't think this move is one that says to Emile Smith-Rowe anything other than we're bringing you in some support right now, but we still believe that you can be the number 10. And he needs that because at this stage in your career, you know, we're not talking about a 17, 18-year-old who's just kind of getting the odd match game here and there. We're talking about someone at 20 now. This is the point where he starts to think about establishing himself, whether it's at Arsenal or whether it's somewhere else. And that will help, I think. The nature of the move will help convince him that he still has a very big future at Arsenal and is a pivotal part of the plans.
And for me, you've hit the nail on the head. And I just feel when we look at football, many Arsenal fans, it's always this thing where, we can't sign this player because we've got that. Football is a squad game. You know, there's 38 Premier League games. Look how much things we've spoken about in the 40 odd minutes we've been here and how many things we've spoken at length. And we're only 19 games in. It's a squad game. You know, when we're missing Smith-Rowe and these sort of players, as we had in a couple of games like Palace and Southampton, we drop off in quality. So I think it's good. I feel competition brings the best out. I don't think Smith-Rowe is complacent or anything like that. But if he was, you're now seeing someone from Real Madrid coming to take your place. It's either buck up your ideas or keep going. And it just gives us more flexibility. Like you said, ideally, I don't really want to see two of them really play because it's either it's stupid because it's the only way to win football, but we have to score more goals than they do us. But I also wouldn't mind it because there's been numerous games where, like you said, like against Palace, 2 banks of 4, 11 men behind the ball, clearing your lines, no real intent of scoring, and I think you need players like that. I feel one theme of us has been our inability to kind of break low blocks. And I wanted to ask you about our movement or lack of movement. Is it down to the players or is it down to Arteta or what Arteta is or isn't doing on the coaching front? Because I do see too many gaps in our team. I see our front three unable to get onto the ball. As you know, naturally, that means you're going to drop deeper. Means your 10 is going to drop deeper. You've got a midfield who, apart from Partey, Xhaka's great when he's got all the time in the world, but they're not consistently ball players like that. Fullbacks seem to be unsure apart from Tierney. So do you think there's more to come? What have you made of our lack of movement?
I think a lot of the lack of movement is because Mikel Arteta is so rigid in how he wants his players positioned. I think some of it is too scripted. I think some of it is too specific, but I think on the other hand, that has helped us improve defensively. Yeah. So there's good and there's good and bad points to that. In terms of the movement, I think what Mikel Arteta is realizing now that he has to do is that he has to set up a defensive structure in terms of the back four and the two players in front of that back four, whether that be Xhaka and Partey, whoever it be, and then take the shackles off the rest of them. And I think you've seen that happen since Emile Smith-Rowe's come into the side. Right. He's linking up with Bukayo Saka, with Lacazette. That's been really, really good. And I think that's because the shackles have been taken off. Emile Smith-Rowe now can go on the right-hand side, play a nice 1-2 with Bukayo Saka within a 10, 15-yard circle and come off and there is no requirement for him to immediately reset and get back into position because that defensive structure is behind him. And the best example of that is Man United right now, I think, where, Solskjaer, for all the stick he's got, he's found a balance where he plays McTominay and Fred. And you look at that Man United squad and you think, McTominay and Fred, why are they playing for Man United? But they give him that defensive solidarity, which allows Bruno, Pogba, Rashford, Martial, essentially to do whatever they want in terms of positions. and that helps them unlock teams and that helps them break people down. So I think Arsenal are kind of trying to do a similar thing. So yeah, I think the lack of movement is partly down to the personnel that have been playing, but it's been partly down to the management and the way the management has been so specific. You know, Mikel Arteta, and I've been lucky to be in the ground a couple of times during this lockdown, and you can really hear what is going on because there isn't
the fans
the
making
crowd.
all the noise and whatnot.
Yeah, exactly. And you can hear exactly what he's saying. And he is orchestrating every move. When an opponent's got the ball, he's already on the next player that he expects to press in the pattern, telling him to get ready to press. Then the next one, then the next one. He's always one sort of kick ahead of what's going on the pitch. But for me, yes, that's a good thing defensively. But in terms of when you're going forward, I think that can hinder you a little bit.
Freedom within a framework.
Yeah, exactly.
You need that creativity to thrive. You need, artists or any sort of, I don't know if we related it like Wenger would do to artistry or music. Some of the best musicians and artists in this world, they're there because they've gone against the grain and things. Very much Ozil was exactly that. I'm sure in an ideal world, we would have had 10 other players who were spot on defensively and then Mesut Ozil, but things don't work out in that regard. So you're spot on with freedom within a framework. To circle back onto Pepe, Richards is saying, and a lot of people say this, to be fair, can we not play him as a striker or a second striker or as an inside forward? Just technically, he's playing as an inside forward right wing already, but in relation to a striker or behind the striker, would you experiment with that? Because he did do that in France to a degree.
Yeah, I think I'd give it a go. I mean, it's not really working now for him, is it? So I don't see that being an issue. I think one of Pepe's strengths is when he does cut in onto that left foot. With Nicolas Pepe, it's either in row Z or it's in the top corner. There's no in between.
Quality, yeah.
There's no in between. So yeah, I think that's something that you could explore. Maybe just talking about how I feel like the system is developing and the fact that probably means that the number 10 is going to have a little bit more, freedom. I wouldn't be against giving him a go there as well. So I think that he's got to be a little bit more open to adapting with certain players, in particular Pepe, because when you look at someone who's really struggling, you have to keep trying stuff until the right thing comes along. Yeah, that's it.
Let me ask you on Aubameyang, because it's just literally come to me. Aubameyang, now we must have known when he signed that 3-year deal, there would be a natural decline. And people always think, yeah, you're saying decline, that means you think he's a bad player. No, he's naturally, like Ronaldo isn't the same Ronaldo he is. He's still excelling. What do you feel is going right or wrong with Aubameyang? Where are you at with Aubameyang? Do you feel we should, if any, whether that's playing him through the middle or changing the way he plays on the left, there's something we can do to tailor how he plays, with it being somewhat the last real quality years he's got left at the top level?
I've got a bit of sympathy for Aubameyang because I feel like obviously he's gone through a bit of a difficult patch this season, but at the end of the day, this is the first difficult patch that Aubameyang has had since he came to the club. Let's be honest. If you look at his goal scoring record, even after a dodgy start to this season, it is still incredible, which suggests that he never experienced a dip in form up until now. So to then get onto him at the first dip in form and say that he's terrible and he's finished and he's past it. And people who say it's because he signed the new contract's absolute nonsense. It's people and people used to say the same thing about Mesut Ozil. It's all nonsense. The contract's got nothing to do with it.
Exactly.
And I think in the summer, we could all agree that many of us felt that the biggest bit of business Arsenal could possibly do in that transfer window was to tie him down. We were all jumping with joy when he signed that contract. Yeah. Well, then 3-4 months down the line, he didn't just become a shit player overnight. So, yeah, he's gone through a difficult period. Yeah, there are still question marks for me whether playing him from that left-hand side is the right thing or playing him through the middle is the right thing. What is his best position? I'm not 100% sure. I don't think Mikel Arteta is 100% sure. But what is becoming more and more clear, I think, over the last few weeks is that we need a centre-forward who can hold the ball up, who can bring others into the game. And our best performances have come when Lacazette's done that. And I don't think Aubameyang, for all the brilliant things he's got, has that in his locker. So, I think right now the only way he can play is from that left-hand side. Scored a really good goal against Newcastle last week. It's sod's law that he's out now for personal issues. But I do think that he'll come good again, and I'm not worried about that.
Same, neither am I. And I was speaking about this on my channel. Obviously, I'm not here to compare Aubameyang and Lacazette, but I think what Lacazette's on 7 Premier League goals, Aubameyang's on 5 now. Aubameyang should have more, but we're saying one's having a somewhat great season, turned it around, and one's having a terrible season.
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
that's where you need balance.
He's a victim of the high standards he set himself.
Facts, without a doubt. And I feel when you look at Aubameyang, you either have two ways to play. You know, Aubameyang, his game is on pace, on movement, on the last man. You make sure everybody plays like that, or you don't play him at all, really and truly. It's fantastic you mentioned that, because I feel if every area at Arsenal was addressed, I personally feel Arteta, will go for a striker. I think he recognised Aubameyang's a threat, but as you perfectly mentioned, he's quite ineffective in terms of the other things. Lacazette does the hold up play and stuff, and he's a good footballer. We can't get away with it. He doesn't bring enough goals to the table. And Eddie's young and he's had some sort of spells, but he's not really the mustard. So I think all three of them have little ingredients that if Arteta could add together, they'd be the perfect striker. But I just feel he's not really convinced with any of them particular. But will he be able to get a striker? I'm not too sure. And that's where I would like to see at Arsenal. I'd like to see a bit of our wingers make up some of the goals, because we've got an over-reliance on Aubameyang in terms of goals, lo and behold.
Yeah, we have, and the wingers haven't contributed anywhere near as much as they should. You know, Pepe hasn't contributed, Willian hasn't contributed. You know, Martinelli's just come back. I'll give him a bit of leeway still. But yeah, it is hard, isn't it? When you've got a midfield that, as I said, is probably more geared to being defensive, so that those players can go and play. You know, how far forward is Xhaka going to get? For example, he's not. Thomas Partey's a bit more of an up and down, box to box kind of midfielder, but I still don't expect him to get more than 4 or 5 goals over the course of the season.
Even that, man, I'm only expecting Partey to get 1 or 2, because that's just not what he was brought here for.
Yeah, exactly.
What do you make of Guendouzi returning, if anything?
It's a really hard situation, this Guendouzi one, because now we're entering that territory where come the end of this season, he'll be in the last year of his contract. So what do? Do you cash in on him, or do you bring him back because you feel he can help the squad but run the risk of losing him at the end of the season? The other big question about Guendouzi, has too much happened between him and Mikel Arteta for him to, for their relationship to be mended? Is it like a broken mirror? You can't really fix it back to his original state. Yeah, I think so too. And that's why I think if Arsenal can, they will probably look to offload him in the summer. And you got to remember, when we're talking about Matteo Guendouzi, this isn't someone we spent 35 million pound on.
7-8, innit?
7-8, exactly. And so if you get 7-8 back, you haven't lost anything. If you get 10, great. If you get 15, it's fantastic.
It's just the only thing you're hoping, where he doesn't go on and turn into that 40-50 million pound player we believe he can, and we say, oh, what is this? Where on one hand, I think, you know, I would be upset if that happened, but on the other hand, I get it. You know, Guendouzi's done well since he's come here. Sometimes managers and players just don't hit it off, and I do think there's a problem if your manager's always having an issue, but we need to get rid of bad eggs or players that are not part of this sort of stuff. What would you do with Torreira? Because it doesn't make sense, but from a footballing point of view, I think it would make more sense for Arsenal to keep Torreira ahead of Guendouzi. But I'd rather keep Guendouzi ahead of Torreira personally, purely because I like Guendouzi's attitude. You know, one thing I can't question how he settled into the country and all of these sort of things. There's obviously resale value. Torreira for me is a great player. It would have been fantastic to have the option of him and or Partey, but it just seems like away from the football field, his just headspace isn't there. So what would you do with Torreira?
It's just the shoe that doesn't fit.
Great way of putting it. Yeah,
he's just a shoe that doesn't fit, and he's a player that I like. I think he's got lots of really good attributes. There's no doubt that in Italy, and I cover a fair amount of Italian football, he still holds a very good reputation. There was a lot of talk of him going to Juventus before he came to Arsenal. He ended up coming to the Emirates Stadium. That hasn't really worked out. I'm not saying that he will go back to Italy and be an automatic starter for one of the big boys necessarily, but there is rumoured interest from Inter. You know, Milan, I'm sure, would look at him as well. He's somebody that suits the Serie A, in my opinion, perfectly. And that's why I'm not worried about us moving Torreira on permanently, because I feel like with his age, with his attributes, with the reputation he's already got, particularly in Italy, I think we will find a buyer for Lucas Torreira. I'd like to see him do well at Arsenal, but as you said, I just think the off the field issues just got the better of him. He wasn't He wasn't settled. He wasn't happy. And that's massive, man. That, don't underestimate. These guys are human beings. And if your environment away from the pitch is not what you want, you're not happy, you're not comfortable.
How are you going to do your job?
Yeah, exactly.
How do you, so looking at it, when I thought he was going to Spain, I would have thought, cool, it's not Italy, but it's closer to his way of life in Italy and how it was in South America. He's got a bunch of Spanish-speaking teammates. You can't have hit a better jackpot. Simeone, him, for a variety of reasons, that's a match made in heaven. And for some reason, it hasn't happened. Now, for me, I can forgive players because sometimes it's the manager, sometimes it's the environment, as you said, or the club. But when you've gone to 2 clubs now under 2 different managers, 3 if we include Emre in the second sort of season, and you're not playing or your stock's fallen, surely you then have to start looking at the player with obviously we don't know the ins and outs, but you have to start looking at the player because everybody can't all be wrong sort of thing.
Yeah, and agreed. And he needs to do the business on the pitch. He needs to, it sounds like a horrible thing to say, but he needs to toughen up a little bit in terms of, he needs to be a bit more resilient to what's going on or the environment that's, going on around him. He needs to be tougher there. Yeah, he needs to deal with that, and he needs to realize that footballers have a short career. You need to, make what you can of it and not have any regrets. You're right. I thought that the fact that he's going to a Spanish-speaking country would have helped him. I think he was a bit of a panic sort of loan or buy, whatever you want to call it.
Trying to offload him sort of thing.
Yeah, we were trying to offload him. Atletico knew they were losing Partey. Or feared that they would lose Partey, and they did the deal to get him in. Now, the thing is, you can't really knock Diego Simeone because Atletico Madrid are top of La Liga, and they look like, given sort of the games in hand they have as well, they're in a very strong position to go on and win it. So whilst things are going well for them, how can you knock him for not picking him? You can't.
Yeah, you can't get into a team that's performing well.
And as a player, how can you go knock on your manager's door and say, I want to play more? When the team's winning,
team's doing well, and you don't have a leg to stand on. Show me on the training ground.
Exactly, and so I think he's been a bit unlucky in that sense. And the fact, I don't think anyone envisaged Real and Barca being, maybe Barca because they've been slowly declining for a couple of years, but I don't think anyone envisaged that Atletico at this point in the season would be where they are in terms of the other big 2 not necessarily keeping up with the pace. So, yeah, he's a bit unlucky with the circumstances. But as you said, he's got to just knuckle down and get on with it.
Facts. You just got to get on, play. Sometimes the best way to get out of a situation is just to knuckle down, get your head down and play football. I forgot to ask you at the start, but what have you made of our centre-halves? Because I feel one sort of bright spark has been how some of these partnerships, or we've got good problems at centre-half. Now, for me, I genuinely feel a lot of players at Arsenal are hot and cold. Holding, David Luiz, Pepe, Maitland-Niles, for example. I don't think Lacazette, I don't think they're bad players, but they go through periods where everything's great, periods where everything's wrong. There's only about 7 players, the usual suspects, that I feel are consistent. But in that regards, what have you made over the centre half pairings and stuff? The Maries, the David Luiz, Holding. Obviously, Gabriel's been a bit unfortunate. What's your feelings around the centre half options? Do you think we're good there? Would you look to go for one in the summer or anything like that, or is it case closed?
I think we're in a much better position than we were 18 months ago. With in terms of centre backs, I think Pablo Mari's come in and done a pretty good job. Got some concerns about his fitness. He seems to pick up injuries way too regularly. Pace is a bit of an issue as well. But I think if he's got the right partner behind him, alongside him, I should say, sometimes you can kind of cater for that. I think that Rob Holding has come on a bit in the last few months, a fair bit. Yeah, and I still don't think he's top draw, but I think he's a solid option. I think that William Saliba is playing well in France at the moment and will potentially come back and come into the mix as well. I think David Luiz this season has actually been quite good for the most part. So I think in terms of options right now, we're doing really well. And Gabriel, I think, has been a really good signing, barring Saturday where he just looked like he'd
off the pace.
Yeah, off the pace. I think we've got real options there now. The challenge now for Mikel is to find the right pairing with the right balance. And that's his biggest challenge now for me. Mustafi's gonna go, if not now, then at the end of the season. So Kratis is already gone, and you've still got somebody like Callum Chambers as well at the club to backfill that. So Kieran Tierney has shown at times that he can slot in as a left centre back and do okay. So he's got loads of options there. I think that's probably the area in which we're most well stocked right now. and it's not really an issue anymore. So, for all the criticism that Mikel receives, I think that's a position that he's strengthened us in. He's turned it around. I think there's still work to be done in the midfield. There's still work to be done up front in the wide areas, in the fullbacks positions, particularly at left back. We still need cover. But I think, you've got to address the core of the team first. So the priorities will be the midfield, the defence, the centre of those two,
Fine, yeah.
And the spine, exactly. So, the rebuild is coming along, albeit slowly and painfully, but it is coming along.
Slow and steady wins the race. So what would be your centre-half pairing at this moment? What would, if you was Arteta, you're picking the team for tonight, who plays centre-half if everybody's fit for you?
Right now, I'd still probably lean towards Gabriel, a fully fit Gabriel, and David Luiz. I still think
That's my one as well.
I still think that David Luiz's ability to progress the ball and the experience and the leadership, I think that's been a real part of why Gabriel has settled so well and so easily. I think having him next to him has helped him a lot. So I think those two probably are the go-to pair for me when fit. But also you've got to look at the longer term, and David Luiz might not even be here next season. So I can understand why Mikel might feel now that this is the season to, maybe use him a little bit more intermittently, bring Rob Holding in, give him more games. Pablo Mari, I think, has done brilliantly. But I think for Mikel Arteta, and I'm not saying that I necessarily agree with this, but I think in his eyes, it's very important to have a left footer and a right footer in terms of the way we play out. Now, for me, I don't think that's that big of an issue. Cast your mind back to the Invincibles, Toure and Campbell, both right-footed.
No one says a thing.
Yeah, no one said a thing. Carvalho, Terry at Chelsea, both right-footed. Vidic, Ferdinand, both right-footed at United. It wasn't an issue. Yeah, it's not an issue. But I do think that Mikel Arteta puts value on that. And that's why Pablo Mari is probably seen as Gabriel's deputy, and Holding and Luiz are probably battling for the other position, in my opinion.
Do you think another centre-half could arrive? Because we have heard reports, essentially.
Yeah, I don't think you'll see one coming in January. I don't think you'll see one even probably coming. Well, mind you, if David Luiz goes, you might see one coming in the summer. But again, it all depends on how things unfold. Will David Luiz be seen as someone who could give us one more year as a backup? And in which case he might get an extension. It might be a cheaper solution at a time where we're struggling financially.
Would you give him an extension? Sorry.
I would wait till the end of the season to decide, to be honest. Based on the way he's playing now, I think he's probably got another year in him. And especially if you're looking at Holding to play more regularly, and then you're looking at David Luiz, as a backfield, then I don't see what the issue is. But it's, a lot of people would disagree with that. A lot of people would say, no, let him go. He shouldn't have even stayed this season. But I think that experience and the fact that so many of the young players talk about him so glowingly all the time tells you a lot about what he brings to the table on the training ground as well. So, I'm a fan of David Luiz. He does have brain fart moments. He does make stupid mistakes at times. But I think that the good points outweigh the bad most of the time.
Like you said there, it's like, I think we all can say David Luiz. You might get the David Luiz that only didn't train and took an injection in his toe to play in the FA Cup final. You might get the David Luiz who switches off and lets a calamitous goal. But like you said, 9 times out of 10, he's done all right. He's even people like Omari Hutchinson in our under 18s. Luiz is very good with him. It's a bit like Lacazette on and off the field. He's great. So I'm a bit weary as to either one of those leaving. My final question to you, because I know we're getting close to the time we have. Thoughts on the Southampton game going into it, because it's all fun and games. With all due respect to Arsenal, we're still undefeated in the league, respect for beating Chelsea, but at the end of the day, it was fantastic in the 3 games or so after that. But Newcastle, Brighton and West Brom, realistically, any team that wants a top 4 place or anything, and any team that wasn't as poor as us, that's business as usual. It's hardly anything to shout about. We're now into this run. Southampton twice. We failed on Saturday. We've got United at the on Saturday, Sunday, and it's just going to get harder from there. So what's your thoughts on the Southampton game and the sort of run we now face ourselves in?
The run is a tough one, isn't it? It's really, really hard, the run that we've got coming up. And we've got so many games. I think we've got 9 games between now and the end of February. So, and that's with going out of the FA Cup. We'd have had another one if we had stayed in that as well. So it's a really difficult run. It's going to be a testing run. I think going into the Southampton game, I think you've got to take some confidence from the fact that that Southampton are unable to rotate. And I've got it in front of me because I wrote a piece yesterday for 90 Min
Check that out as well, people.
Discussing, cheers, mate. Discussing sort of this game, and they're still without Vestergaard, Djenepo, Salisu, Redmond, and Romeu.
Really?
They're all injured. And we heard that Carl
Walker,
not get
too excited, but
we heard that Carl Walker-Peters is out now as well, and Ryan Bertrand is suspended. So Ralph Hasenhüttl cannot rotate tonight. So you're going to see the same team pretty much, barring the two fullbacks and maybe the goalkeeper McCarthy will come back in. But barring that, it's going to be a very similar team. So you hope that fatigue will play its part. You look at Arsenal, we hope that Kieran Tierney would come into the side. That's a bit of a doubt now. We hope that maybe Aubameyang will be back. That's not going to happen. But Saka's going to come in from the beginning. Partey's going to come in from the beginning. Lacazette will come in from the beginning. So you'd imagine that Arsenal's level in general would elevate.
That creativity goes up. We lost it because of the rotated on Saturday.
Yeah, exactly. So you'd hope that Arsenal will be in a much better state. Add to that we'll have more fresh players. You hope that Arsenal will do it. I think Arsenal will win it tonight. I think it will be a narrow win.
Would, my guy. I hope so. We need to.
I'll take a famous old 1-0 to the Arsenal tonight, to be honest. And if we didn't win, if we were to be held to a draw, it would be by no means be a disgrace away at Southampton. They beat Liverpool there just a few weeks ago.
Not really, for real.
Yeah, and they're above us in the Premier League right now, having played a game less. So it would by no means be a disgrace, but you just know that because he made so many changes on Saturday, he's going to get absolutely hammered if we get anything less than a win. And
he's doubled down on it, man.
Exactly.
Like, he's doubled down on it. He has to win. I hope we do win. Harry, I've loved having you here for an hour. Not that anyone doesn't know who the hell you are, but quick plug of all your stuff again, man.
Thank you very much, man. Yeah, you can check out the Chronicles of a Gooner. It's available on YouTube and in podcast format. At the moment, during the January window, we're putting out 2 pods a day, so check that out. It's part of the 90 Min network, so head over to 90min.com as well. And yeah, thank you. And make sure you're subscribed to Deluded if you haven't already. Make sure you smash the like button on your way out. It doesn't cost a thing, but it really helps the channel. So yeah, get hitting that like button.
I appreciate that, my guy. Like you saw, man, Harry's got video content, podcast/voice content. He's done a lot of written pieces. So there's different strokes for different folks. You can go and get your fix until we obviously play Southampton. So yeah, one love for doing this with me, Harry. People, please make sure you hit the like button. I'll be back again for a watch along later. I'm sure Harry will be on YouTube as well with some content. So make sure you're paying attention. But for now, we're out, people. We're out. Peace.